Hey, I'm Jay Kumar, the BassBlaster, and this is your Seafoam and Kistler Rods top 5 of the week in bass fishing, number 1. The AAA tours have hit brownfish waters, and the top tours are there this week. So let's take a look at what's been happening in smallmouth world.
Proceed.
Number 1 is it's going micro.
You could go subatomic.
Okay, not subatomic, but crappie-tomic. Crappie-sized stuff like this. Those are the new micro series baits from Great Lakes Finesse, which is the leader in this whole new subatomic bass bait size trend. Here's a little more about it from my iCast top 5 video. And that really is the reason for the finessier stuff, pressure. Sonar pressure, fishing pressure. Most places the fish are just more skittish and harder to catch. Now Dan is a tournament fisherman, and he says he starts his tournament days with these tiny baits now because he says they get him more bites and he loses fewer fish because of that single hook. Case in point, him and his tournament partner just won a pretty serious tournament on the St. Lawrence River / Lake Ontario doing it. If you're wondering who Dan is...
Dan?
Yeah, Dan. Dan Miguel is the head of Great Lakes Finesse. And here's the micro series baits that him and his tournament partner Matt Dobson fished in that win. Now I'm not sure if you can see in that pic that the rods are Great Lakes Finesse rods. Their high-end rods GLF came out with this year because you need different specialized equipment to cast those tiny baits 100+ feet. And that's needed because of fishing pressure and clear water. Now just like with any technique, the right rod, reel, and lines are super important. Dan says he likes Daiwa Ballistics reels, and his line setup is usually 5-pound Power Pro braid to a 6 to 8-pound fluoro leader. He says he uses Drennan fluoro, which I'd never heard of, but it's a fly fishing leader material. There's a little juice for you.
I love juice.
Me too, man. By the way, Dan and his part won that tourney on the St. Lawrence River, which brings us to number 2. Man, we've got forward-facing sonar, fishing pressure, and clear water in smallmouth territory. And we've got pinging a minnow and micro baits to catch them. But in the last 2 tournaments, majors on the St. Lawrence River, the tried and true drop shot was the number 1 technique used to catch them, including by both winners, Chris and Corey Johnston. Chris won the MLF Invitational there, and the next weekend his brother Corey won the Bassmaster Open. Here's what the top 10 finishers in both of those tournaments fished. As you can see, they did ping a minnow a bunch, but the drop shot was still the main deal. And that doesn't mean they weren't using forward-facing sonar with it, because they definitely were, except for day 2 in the invitationals when no forward-facing sonar is allowed. Now, both Chris and Corey fished a drop shot, though not exclusively. Chris drop shotted a Wacky Rig Spro CJ Smasher, and Corey drop shotted a 6 Cents Party Minnow. Now, both baits those guys designed, I'm sure, for smallmouth waters, including the St. Lawrence River. Now, color-wise, about half the drop shot baits all those guys fished were some shade of green pumpkin. Other than that, they were all your typical drop shot baits like the Berkley Maxcent Flatworm, with 3 exceptions. What were those exceptions? Number 3.
Here come the fuzz.
Oh, they're coming. Even though the fuzz is the buzz in the fishing industry, meaning fuzzy baits or dice type baits, so far we haven't seen a bunch of them fished by top finishers on the major trails yet. On the 2 recent St. Lawrence River major tournaments, which were a MLF Invitational and a Bassmaster Open, dice or fuzzy type baits made an appearance 4 times among the top 10 finishers in both of those events. So that's 4 guys out of 20, which is 20%.
Hang on. I'm just checking your math on that. Yes. I got the same thing.
So it wasn't nothing, but it's not huge yet. 3 of the top 10 guys in the Bassmaster Open fished them. South Carolina's Lucas Murphy finished 4th and drop shotted a Strike King Tumbleweed. Georgia's Caleb Hudson, who was 7th, drop shotted a Hide Up Koike. I think that's how you pronounce that. And Bass Pro Tour Pro Michael Top 10 Neal got 8th drop shotting the new Big Bite Bait Sensation Fuzzy Stick. And that bait is based on the bait he won the St. Lawrence Bass Pro Tour event with last year. So all 3 open guys drop shotted him. But on the Invitational, Mitchell Robinson was the only guy to fish a dice bait, and he fished an OSP dice rubber shallow. Basically, he Nico rigged it with a G-Crack Nico hack and a 1/32 ounce weight. G-Crack Nico hack, G-Crack Nico hack. That's very much like Easton Fothergill rigged a dice rubber last year to win an open with. Now I gotta take a second to shout out the Robinson family because Mitchell just qualified for the MLF Bass Pro Tour where his brother Marshall and his dad Marty already fish. Now I asked Marty how this grand plan was going and he was like,
"We're taking over the world!"
I was like, chill, Marty, man, it's just bass fishing. But those dice/fuzzy baits, they're here to stay, and at least one of them has some giant grand plans too. Just a few more tournaments and
Take over the world!
I wouldn't be surprised. Number 4.
Any sonar contacts, Mr. Kamarov?
Why, yes, there have been in smallmouth land. So many that pinging a minnow was the number 2 most used techniques in the 2 recent tournaments, major tournaments on the St. Lawrence River, which were the MLF Invitational and the Bassmaster Open. Are you surprised?
I am 100% surprised.
That sounds like sarcasm. Okay, maybe you're surprised that it wasn't the number 1 deal because forward-facing sonar is all that. But at the St. Lawrence River anyhow, the fish are ultra pressured.
Ultra Magnus.
Okay, ultra Magnus pressured, but they don't get fooled easily. Plus you have some clear water and current. So maybe getting that bait to the bottom with a drop shot was more important there. But at the semi-recent MLF Toyota tournament on Lake Champlain, pinging a minnow was by far the number 1 deal there. It was done by all the top 10 finishers, including winner and Bassmaster Elite Series rookie Tucker Smith, and it was his first time ever on Champlain. Now Tucker fished a 5-inch Yamamoto shad-shaped worm, but the most ping bait among the top 10 at that tournament was, yep, you guessed it, the Depths Sakamata shad.
Sock it to me!
Those things are
rarer than the pine weasel.
Okay, will pinging a minnow be the number 1 or the number 2 top technique after the last 3 tour level tournaments that are happening in smallmouth country this week and the weeks after? We'll find out, man. In the meantime, don't forget to say this to anybody complaining about forward-facing sonar. Haha, just messing. Number 5. Why do tubes catch fish? Is it because they look like this underwater? Not sure the fish like that though. Alright, well, tubes and the OG gets its catch fish and always will. Probably because they look like anything. A fish, a crawfish, a bug, whatever. For decades, tubes were a huge bait for smallmouths, but then they got knocked down a few pegs by first the drop shot and now pinging a minnow. At least on the top tours. But a lot of smallmouth guys, of course, still fish them. Like this guy, Chris Johnston, who won the MLF Invitational on the St. Lawrence River a few weeks back. One of his baits was a Green Pumpkin 2.5-inch Berkeley Maxcent tube that he old school drifted along the bottom. Maxcent, of course, is pretty much known as being cracked for smallmouths. So I guess tubes are still playing, even though Chris was the only guy in the top 10 in both recent major St. Lawrence tournaments to have fished one. For sure, tubes will still catch them, and we have some real good smallmouth tubes, like the new 2-inch Z-Man Llama tubes designed by Seth Fider. Plus, companies like Cast Again Tackle make just about every tube size and color you could ever think of. So, are tubes still playing? Yes! That's yes saying yes, so it's gotta be a yes. That's all I got for you this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Seafoam and Kistler Rods. See you next week. God bless you.